Are you ready to branch out, to take a leap of faith, to love yourself and others fully? Then let go of whatever no longer serves you to take action now on Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills, living it up, loving it up, and letting it go. Erica will energize and excite you to power up your passionate dream that sets your soul on fire. With Erica's E3 approach, equipping, empowering, and enlightening yourself so you can be yourself for yourself. Get ready and get rooted to live a life without regrets, without what ifs, without should haves, and especially without empty feelings from a life unexplored. This hit show helps you build powerful and intentional roots to live it up, love it up, and let it go. Get fearlessly ready and powerfully rooted in your yes with your host, Erica Gifford Mills, and be fearless about your more and stand in your yes. Now on Get Rooted Radio.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Erica Gifford Mills, and you are listening to Get Rooted Radio, living it up, loving it up, letting it go, right here on Transformation Talk Radio. A big shout out, as always, to my producer today, Moxie. Moxie, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day.
It is indeed. I cannot believe it's already August. I mean, I don't know where this year is gone, let alone last year. So I am really excited for today's show because it all begins in childhood, right? Everything begins, and we are all raising and influencing our next generation to really lead us into the future. And so today's episode is titled Using the Power of Self-Determination to Alleviate the Harmful Effects of Stress in Children. And the story that we're going to talk about was written by my guest to share how when life's obstacles cause stressful experiences, we can activate our inner courage to plan a better outcome for ourselves. And truly learning to use the power of self-determination can alleviate those harmful effects of stress. Goal setting is a strategy that helps us achieve our life's purpose. And it's never too early to teach our children, the generations that are coming after us and that will lead us in the future, that overcoming barriers to reach a goal takes hard work and self-determination. But I want to tell you a little bit about my guest first. Joanne Telcide-Bryant is a first-generation Haitian American, a mother, a multi-award-winning published children's author, an educational consultant, and a presenter. Joanne has completed her education specialist degree in teaching and learning with a focus on special education from Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia. She's a veteran educator of 23 years with public school sector and bilingual speaker of English and Haitian Creole. Oh, say that 10 times fast. Joanne promotes cultural sensitivity, provides optimal awareness of cultural diversity as a component of the special education. She also has a publishing company. Josh and Nellie's Publishing is a family-owned business that strives to teach various growth mindset themes through adventurous children's book stories, encouraging young readers to think critically using social emotional learning skills. The spirit of Josh and Nellie's promoting reading literacy comes from Joanne's passion for education excellence as a special education teacher, speech impaired teacher, and an English as a second language teacher. I am so excited to have her on the show today. Please welcome Joanne.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. That was a beautiful intro.
Well, I am, and please don't judge my speaking, because I went as I don't know if I could even say a graduate, but as a speech student, right? I was in speech classes through high school. I talked too fast, which that hasn't changed, but as the youngest of 9 children, in order to have a word in edgewise, you had to talk fast. But also I stuttered. R's and L's and W's, forget it. And I still have those problems, but they're not as noticeable all the time. So I appreciate what you do as an educator. And I love for listeners to hear your background as an educator.
Yes, and thank you for that. And I want you to know that you're doing phenomenal. And basically, what I want you to don't focus on your speech, because I won't focus on my speech, and I'm not even perfect. by no stretch of the imagination, but I love the fact that you have embraced and you've embraced your communication skills and you're able to give back to the community. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And so, like you said, I am an educator. I am beginning my 24th year of public education, public school education. And while teaching, as you already said, that I specialize in education. I earned a specialist education specialist degree, and I love to incorporate all aspects of my field in special education, in speech impairment, as well as ESOL, which is teaching young learners to speak English as a multiple language. And I love to promote diversity. I understand sensitivity because of the population of students that I teach. And I incorporate all of the three fields, my background, in what I do in teaching and reaching students every day.
That is so important because when you're not represented in books, right? Whether it's a female role, whether it's cultural, whether it's your sexuality, it can sometimes make you not want to read. And we all need to read, right? It's a necessity. And
Right.
so in addition to your educational background, because of course that's paramount to what you do, but from a literacy perspective, like what fields of study that you think relate to your literacy really made you want to get into the publishing?
So I'll say this. So the field of studies that I do possess related to literacy, as I mentioned before, my background earning a certification in English for speakers of other languages, that's the ESOL, as well as speech and hearing impaired, earning that certificate. As well as the early intervention teacher that's working with individuals at an early age to bridge the academic gap that they are depicting or demonstrating. And so an array of the ESOL, the speech impairment, working with students with learning disabilities, the background in all of those fields has aided me to promote literacy and also further to venture into the literacy program as which I have created, not only in writing the books, but also making curriculums for the books when I go out and present to young learners.
That I think that is so incredible because not only do you encourage them to read, but then you can educate them further from the reading itself. So I mentioned during your intro that you're an award-winning a published children's author, and so very much congratulations to that.
Thank
and
you.
so you are definitely a storyteller. So what would qualify you? I mean, to me, you've written books, you go out there and educate on books. That to me, you're an expert, right? But what do you feel that qualifies you as that expert storyteller?
Thank you. Yes, sure. So I believe that my teaching experience with individuals as young as preschool through adulthood qualifies me as an expert in storytelling. For example, storytelling aims to make a positive difference for learners and their families by setting up young learners for success. So therefore, storytelling presentations gives the young learners, our readers, those tools necessary to feel and be confident when they're reading and learning storybooks. My storytelling focuses on aiding our learners in building their knowledge and reasoning skills and developing their disposition regarding the story theme, characters, and outcomes. I remember presenting one of my books titled, "No, I Am Not," says Kenny the Koala. And children were asked to reflect on reasons why Kenny the Koala became angry throughout the story. And it was just wonderful to see our young learners explain various perspectives on why Kenny the koala displayed multiple moods and how they believe Kenny the koala could have better expressed himself as the story unfolds. So in comparison, when I present my book, I'm just dying to be Queen Bee is the topic of self-determination. Children reflect on their ideas about how the character persevered and maintained self-regulation to achieve her goal. So during these presentations, through activities and crafts, young learners share their ideas and thoughts with the audience that they come with. And parents often attend the storytime presentations with their children, and they witness their children's courage. Even the shy children's, the shy children, excuse me, come around. They share their ideas, their knowledge, and even their drawings, and explaining their perspectives and ideas related to the activity, and overall the story theme of social and emotional learning. So it's promising, it's rewarding, to receive that positive feedback from our young learners, the parents, and the community.
Well, and I'd say it really incorporates that social emotional learning skills. And I think sometimes we're amazed when we see our children, or not even literally our children, but the royal our children,
right,
that they can use those skills. Sometimes we underestimate them. And when we see that they can, oh yeah, maybe he could have handled that better. There might be ways, those tips and tricks for parents and teachers and community to help to pull those social and emotional skills out of kids. Right. Because I think when you're in the moment, I think we all have done that. I mean, I'll make it an I statement. I've done that, where in the moment I'm like, oh, that really made me angry. And I got angry, but later I'm like, oh, I wish I would have handled that better. I know how to handle that. So when you're in the moment, it's hard, right? And my son hates when I say this, but when he was young, he was a biter. And I'd ask him, well, but that's your friend. Why would you bite him? Because I couldn't get my words out. I couldn't get my words out fast enough. And I was mad. And I opened my mouth and I just bit him. And I'm like, okay, well, then we need to figure out how you don't just bite until you can get your words out. So we went through the, blowing out the mad. When you get angry, blow out the mad for 10 seconds and then use your words, because by then you're calmed down. But it's when you're in that situation, you don't always have that wherewithal to do that. And the kids are no exception.
Right. And I agree with you. And I love that you say that. As you described your son there, having difficulty getting his words out. That's the purpose for teaching young readers at a young age when they're reading my books, because the characters go through dilemmas, and children get to relate and see themselves in the story characters. And here we can talk about what the story character could have done, as I mentioned before, to better express themselves. And my hope is that our young readers will reflect their emotions as well, and how they could better work out obstacles that will come in life, because that's a definite, right? We're going to face obstacles, unfortunately.
Oh, we all do. So let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about growth mindset through storytelling. But before we go, Joanne, tell folks how they can reach you.
I can be reached at info@joshnelliesbooks.com, or straight to my website, joshnelliesbooks.com. And the website will definitely see the link there to connect with me.
Thank you. You're listening to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. If you missed any portion of today's episode, you can catch it on getrootedradio.com. That's getrootedradio.com. Don't forget to subscribe online to receive the latest news, events, specials, and words of encouragement. Go to getrootedradio.com. Welcome back to my guest, Joanne Telcide-Bryant. Thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you. And once again, thank you for having me.
Well, during the last segment, we heard a little bit about your journey from educator to author. And during this segment, we're going to discuss achieving a growth mindset through storytelling. So, and that's really important because as we talked about, children learn through associating themselves in the story. So what would be an example that you've experienced while teaching that warrants really looking at a growth mindset in children? Because I mean, adults have problems with a growth mindset, right? So
Right.
how do we implement this in children?
Well, and again, like I said, this is my purpose in life as an author here. And as I mentioned earlier, my teaching background, I have been able to witness a good number of students demonstrate what's called learned helplessness. And which means somehow they have convinced themselves that they can't learn, or they will always struggle, or they shouldn't even try. And if you remember, I had stated that I work with a population of students who may have learning disabilities or speech impairments, or learning a new language, and all of these kind of anxieties, can sort of make the student, the learner, feel as if, they just won't succeed. So as educators, this negative mindset makes teaching and learning most difficult for students and teachers. So I spend ample time convincing learners that they should consider that they can learn. They can learn new skills, right, with determination and practice. Along with that, teaching new skills and so on, and influences from the media also will sort of teach kids negative behaviors or positive behaviors. So as I present in the classroom, or if I'm storytelling at a bookstore or at an event, making sure that I model what growth mindset is vital to help us build a positive attitude, especially being able for our young learners to generate that positive attitude, which is having that growth mindset, thinking about problem solving skills, knowing that even though life is difficult, but they can set a plan to ensure that they make a fruitful life for themselves.
So some people might not understand that the definition of a growth mindset in an adult is different than that of a child. Mm-hmm. So how does not only one define growth mindset with children, but also how does that literacy building correlate with children in a growth mindset?
Okay. So I'll start with, first of all, instructing children that they are intelligent enough in their way, in the literacy that they do know, in the cognitive ability that they do have, that they are intelligent enough to solve their problems. And of course, they may need help from adults and, others, supporters with them. But they can learn to help themselves solve problems that arises around them, right? Children with a developing growth mindset can view obstacles and challenges, whether it's academic or social settings, as opportunities for self-determination to grow, to learn, and to apply new skills. Moreover, they train themselves so that when new challenges arise, they can be confident to tackle tasks and gain success from overcoming challenges in the future, just as they did, when they had an obstacle that they had to overcome. Now, bridging that literacy building and correlating that, children, again, with developing growth mindset, they view these challenges, the obstacles, to apply that self-determination, as I said, to grow, to learn new skills. Literacy building is a skill that the learners that I often work with, they don't. They do not accept that positivity, excuse me. My job in this situation is to tackle literacy building that's coupled with growth mindset, with fun-filled activities. So as adults, we can clearly witness that adequate reading skills tend to help learners to feel confident. So by building literacy and vocabulary and fun activities through storytelling, like in my books, will build that confidence that leads to success, which is a self-esteem booster in achieving academic standards as well. So that bridging literacy and growth mindset is me as an educator, parents, as caregivers, providing that aid to children to help boost their confidence. And I'll say, confidence is really key in that. So when children feel confident, then they're ready to tackle on, difficulties, and they can do that in a positive way.
And the positivity is important, right? We all know that things stick with us from a young age, right? And if we have constant negativity around us, we're going to be negative, right? If you focus on the negative is going to grow. If you focus on the positive is going to grow. It's just like a magnifying glass, right?
I agree.
And how do we encourage? So I know we can encourage children, but how do we encourage the community to have that? Because sometimes people will see a children and oh gosh, not the kids. Now I can't enjoy myself. The kids are around, or oh, and look at a bunch of young rascals running around. And how do we encourage the community to be more positive, and even in just their everyday interactions, to then encourage the other behaviors?
So I think what we can do as adults, again, we know that we're caregivers, even if we don't think so, that we are, and even if we don't have children that we are raising or in our home. But we do know that when we are out, and it helps us as adults, we when we have difficult experiences, is to think about the brighter side of things and what we would like to see for our lives. Where do we want to be? And how are we going to achieve that in healthy ways, and in doing so, we help ourselves. Now, when we have kids around us, as an educator in the classroom, it's vital that I am modeling that type of behavior and I do a lot of thinking out loud, and I do that on purpose when I'm teaching, because I want my students to hear me think through using critical thinking skills to think through dilemmas. And what I'll see is they'll emulate, when they get into an obstacle, then they'll say, wait, I could do this, or I could, do that. Then I know it's working. But again, as a mom, as a teacher, that's something that I do. And I know that my students are picking that up. So I would say being a model, thinking through and finding healthy ways to solve our problems, and to make life better for ourselves.
I think that's great advice for all of us to take. So let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about social emotional learning. We touched on it very briefly in the first segment, but let's get a little bit deeper. But before we go, you have a special during the month of August for listeners. Tell them about it.
Yes, thank you. So on my website, when listeners are looking through the resources that I provided and the books that I have written, I have a giveaway code, and it's labeled Rooted, ROOTED. And it's basically a purchase 3 books, but you're paying the price of two. So buy two books. I'll throw in a third one for free. And all that we'll need, the person will need to do is to add the giveaway code ROOTED, and that's for the entire month of August.
Awesome. Thank you. Listeners, go to her website, and that is again, Joanne.
Yes, that's JoshNelliesBooks.com.
And then the code is ROOTED, ROOTED. And now you're out on social media. Folks can get you not only on your website, but on your social media.
Yes. Well. Yeah, for sure. You can find me on X, formerly Twitter, at Josh Nellies Books. I'm on the Instagram at Josh Nellies Publishing. My Facebook business page is at Josh Nellies Books, and on TikTok at Josh Nellies.
Thank you so much. So listeners, get out there, check them out. I am Erica Gifford Mills, and you are listening to Get Rooted Radio, living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills, living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Don't forget to visit getrootedradio.com to listen to a replay of this episode or other episodes, sign up for helpful tips, and learn about upcoming events. That's getrootedradio.com. Welcome back to my guest, Joanne Telcide-Bryant. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
All right. Thank you. Thank you again for having me.
No, my pleasure. So during the last segment, we discussed growth mindset through storytelling. Now, during this segment, I really want to ask if there's a relationship between growth mindset and social emotional learning. So before you answer that, though, maybe let's remind listeners, what is social emotional learning?
All right. So social emotional learning is a framework of which growth mindset isn't a component. But let me, before I jump into that, when we think about social emotional learning, we think about the emotions and behaviors that we possess within our social interactions. So we can think about self-esteem, self-awareness, are examples of social emotional behaviors in the classroom. And there are a few others that I will definitely be able to get to in just a bit.
Awesome. So what would you say is, I mean, I know you say, yes, there is a relationship. So what do you think, what do learning the growth mindset attributes look like for that young learner?
All right. So when we think about social emotional learning, as I just mentioned, healthy social emotional learning is a framework of which growth mindset is a component. And as learners develop positive self-awareness and interpersonal skills, which are the SEL, social emotional skills, they can use healthy attitudes to apply growth mindset beliefs to problem solve. Okay, so taking a look at what growth mindset attributes look like for young learners, like for example, one, we can see a young learner feeling confident enough to embrace challenges. Like this could be the student who embraces new learning opportunities and will take on a class project that requires independent study or research development or delivery. Number two, we can see a student not giving up on a project when faced with a detour. This learner will set steps that they will follow in multiple ways to complete a task. Three, we can see a student learning by trial and error, like this adaptation. This is adaptable. Actually, the student will set a positive mindset to motivate themselves to understand the errors made and learn from them, like reassuring others about the value of learning from mistakes. Fourth, we can see a learner feeling inspired. The student will be inspired by their success and others.
And how young have you experienced seeing that the growth mindset attributes in a young learner. So, some people think they're just kids, right? They're playing, but how young have you seen them be able to really pick up these growth mindset attributes?
I've worked with students even before they enter into pre-K. But I would say when a student's able to verbalize and I'm able to say, oh, wow, they're really applying really healthy, positive problem solving skills as young as preschool and kindergarten. We'll have a friend on the playground. They might have gotten hurt and they're crying, or maybe another friend that they had, early that morning is no longer their friend by afternoon. And you'll see one or two very young learners, maybe preschool age, 3, 4, 5 years old. They'll go over and they will pour into that one child who's sad or crying and speak positively and figure out ways. Why don't we start a new game? Let's play here. Let's do this. Let's go over there. Or they'll even try to problem solve and go over to the other friend that changed their mind about playing together. And you'll see that they'll demonstrate attributes of growth mindset by thinking positively, trying to solve a problem, trying to get together and be friends. So it does work, and it warms my heart to see and to hear the perspective of our young learners when they want to share ideas of how they want to bridge gaps and definitely demonstrate social emotional benefits by working out problems and being together.
In other words, never underestimate our youth, right?
Yes, I agree with that 100%.
And they pick up what is around in their surroundings, right? They see. So when we're using the growth mindset, when we're using tools, they can pick that up without us even knowing it. And sometimes it is that atmosphere, right? And I know we talked about a little bit, but that was more for community members. But so how do we promote an atmosphere that really helps to foster those positive learning experiences for our children in the next generation?
I love it. So instructional delivery, right, is very important when promoting an atmosphere that promotes positive learning experiences for young learners. In the classroom, as a trained educator, we have something called differentiated methods, are ways that young learners feel successful, where you're providing different ways of tackling education instruction to help young learners learn at their level. So that's where that differentiation comes from. Within my personal children books, I like to include a prologue that helps the young reader to begin to make predictions before they even begin reading the story, and that kind of fosters excitement. I also provide a glossary in the book because, again, if they come up on a word of a literacy word, a vocabulary word that they're not familiar with, they can go right in the book into the glossary and find out the meaning of that word and understand it. I also go a step further. I provide a set of comprehension questions. And the reason why I do this is to help really drive in not only what the story is about, but the theme, the critical thinking, to make sure that as the learners read my books, they're making those connections, the connections with the positive thinking, also taking a look at the character's behavior in the story and making those connections. So like learning targets are already embedded in each book with the location to provide our young readers with these tools that are necessary to help them feel confident when they are reading our Josh Nelly's books. Furthermore, they interact, they share their interpretations about how they feel and view the story that they just read. They provide their insight into the story's theme that they have learned.
And, playing devil's advocate here, I can see some people saying, well, that's a lot to put in just a children's book.
Yeah.
But why? Why do we do that? Because I feel like sometimes, again, we underestimate our children and the knowledge and never starting too early to educate. But why is that important? Why do, having that information, not only in the classroom, but to have your books at home for the parents, right? For aunts, uncles, for, family, friends. Why is having that information important?
I think it's important, one, because as I would teach a lesson, these are what I feel are most important and how I teach, and I find that are vital, effective in teaching and learning. By having it all in one location, having vocabulary, making predictions about what the story is going to be about, that builds up the momentum, the excitement, having a glossary readily available helps that student to conquer any fears that they may have, like, I'm just going to put this book down because I discovered a word, and I don't know what it means and I don't want to read it. So again, it helps that student to be confident. It's all in there. And of course, the questions, as they read the questions, they answer the questions, they think about, it helps them to foster that critical thinking skills. It's all in one. It helps the parent, as the parent is reading to their children, the parents are able to get involved and delve more into asking those critical thinking questions. And the parents also get to see and understand how their child is able to think through the questions and learn about the dilemmas the character face in the story and get a perspective of how their child is thinking. And I think that's vital. So they can learn a lot about their children by asking these questions that's already provided to them that's within the book.
I think that's awesome, because sometimes we forget we're adults and we don't think the same way as the kids, right? And being able to have that conversation, not just being a reader or a listener, right? If it's you're reading to your child or your child's reading to you, you can actually be an active participant in the dialogue of the story.
Right. And that's vital.
Yeah.
And when parents are able to have that tool and they know what questions to ask, they really get a feel for even furthering the education and that experience, that learning experience, by asking more of their questions or even helping a child develop their thinking. The parents are able to use that as a probing method as well.
So any other items that our listeners should know with regards to the relationship between a growth mindset and social and emotional learning?
I would say, a profound impact is exposing children early, onto vocabulary and literacy rules while building that academic confidence. And independence, it relates to how children shape perspective, interpretation. The more that they know, the better they feel confident to tackle the world that they are in. So it is vital to ensure that children are developing healthy habits. And positive habits to also aid in their development of critical thinking skills. So I would say that, relating and ensuring that growth mindset is key, balancing that social emotional learning opportunities will definitely set up young learners for successful lives. I like to think of, as a teacher who typically coaches young learners who struggle with literacy. I know for sure exposing them to these fun stories, it piques their interest. It provokes an intrinsic motivation that assists with them making sense of words and word structuring. That's that literacy piece. Additionally, children reading early in life can better form their social, emotional, and growth mindset skills through their imagination, which develops as they read. And this is the best way to work with children with, learning disabilities to address literacy challenges by exposing them to fun stories that are presented in diversified ways. So for this reason, I like to go out as well and do these presentations because I'm out there and I'm really helping to capture these learning experiences with learners out there.
That's awesome. Well, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to discuss why we should all be dying to be Queen Bee. This is Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. If you missed any information during the last segments, go to getrootedradio.com to listen to the replay. Don't forget to subscribe, sign up for tips and special events and pricing for upcoming coaching sessions at getrootedradio.com. So welcome back to my guest, Joanne Telcide-Bryant. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Now, listeners, if you missed it during the last segment or the end of the last segment, or segment before, so you just need to re-listen to the whole segment or the whole episode. But we have a special guest for you listeners. So the secret code is rooted, ROOTED. And Joanne, tell listeners what they can do and how they can get a special little prize when they go to your website.
Yes, for visiting my website, I would love to gift you a free book when you purchase 2. So the bundle is choose 3 and you'll pay the price of 2. Or I could say purchase 2 and I'll throw in that 3rd book there. Throw in that 3rd book.
And what is your website again?
It is joshnelliesbooks.com.
And you're out there on X and the Gram and all those.
Yes.
Tell listeners how they can reach you on social media.
All right. So X, formerly Twitter, is at Josh Nellies Books. On Instagram at Josh Nellies Publishing. Facebook at Josh Nellies Books. And TikTok at Josh Nellies.
Awesome. So now during the last segment, we were talking about the components of social emotional learning. And I know during the break, you wanted to clarify a little some of that. So the components of social emotional learning.
Yes. So what I like to do with social emotional learning in the classroom too, as we were talking a little bit about that. So social emotional learning is the process of, learning and how to apply our knowledge or skills, understanding. We're managing our emotions, we're setting goals, we're building relationships and the attitudes that we're using with all of that. And I just wanted to clarify the components include, self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, relationship skills, and self-awareness, if I missed that one. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So now during this last segment, before we went to break, I said we wanted to talk about why we should all be dying to be Queen Bee. Now that is in relationship to a book that you have. So tell folks about it and how does that book foster growth mindset in children?
For sure. So I'll answer by sharing the inspiration behind writing this story. So writing the story, I'm just dying to be Queen Bee, is really about how life is full of obstacles. And from a young age, we often feel the stress of competing to fulfill things. And sometimes life teaches us that overcoming barriers to reach a goal takes hard work and self-determination. So then when does one realize when to apply the courage and the hard work to go after something meaningful? Is it even beneficial to create a plan to follow a roadmap to success? So our story character, her name is Nastasia, the honeybee. She's a worker bee, and she demonstrates that setting a plan and sticking to her mission does pay off. She realizes that believing in her abilities and being able to apply self-determination earns her the life that she wants for herself. So this is a story that will help young learners to learn what it takes and what is the meaning of perseverance, how to persevere to achieve life's goals, and then create a life that's right, for you as the reader. So this story fosters the SEL framework, which is the social emotional framework, because as you will see as the story, as the young reader continues to read and the story fills out, the character is using self-awareness, social awareness, making responsible decision-making, self-management, as well as relationship skills. And these incorporate the positive thinkings to help young readers identify how to use the growth mindset strategies that are demonstrated in the story to reach the goals. So when I read this story and I talk to our young readers, I ask questions about, what would you like to do when you grow up? And they talk about being a dancer, a singer, a sports, sportsman, and whether it's playing basketball or soccer. And we talk about, well, what would it take? Are there days where it's too difficult, to get up and practice? And what do they do? How do they think positively so that, they can be the best that they want to be? So the stories that I usually get from our young learners are just, they're just amazing to hear them think through obstacles and use their critical thinking skills.
And I love that. I think it's such a inventive way and creative way, because sometimes we think of queen bee, as adults, oh, she's a queen bee, right?
Mm-hmm.
As potential negative, but this is so neat to see how you did that. So really, what profound impact do you aim to achieve in the youth when you're sharing these powerful stories?
The impact is, in thinking about this story, I'm just dying to be queen bee. So I talk about honeybee facts just because it's very fascinating. The honeybee does the worker bee just works, and that's all they really do in nature. But here we have a character that is that has a goal for themselves, and they want to do more than just work, and then be eliminated. So as the story continues and it evolves and develops, the students they're excited about whether the honeybee is going to make it, because if she doesn't make it, then she knows that that's it. That's life for her. She's eliminated. So when we talk about how the honeybee had to definitely, tell herself, Nastasia had to tell herself, daily affirmations, that's part of growth mindset. That's part of thinking critically, also thinking positively. The thinking critically part also comes in where she says, well, she needs a plan. So she makes a plan, to win over, the current queen, and then she does face obstacles because, the queen says, well, that's not your role. Stay in your role. So now there's a
Stay in your lane.
Yes, stay in your lane. So then there's a setback, she's like, the queen doesn't notice her. What should she do? Should she just go back and, and just accept her fate, or should she just continue to try? So I love to, after reading the story, to speak to our learners and just to hear how they develop and say, I want to continue, and, and they can relate difficulties in their lives, whether it's winning a soccer game or a basketball game, or, not getting first place or second place, for different contests that, that they have going on in their lives, and how they want to persevere and apply growth mindset strategies, to what they have going on. And I love that. And I know that I'm doing my job and, my purpose. I'm living my purpose when I hear my young learners are able to express that.
That is amazing. Thank you again, Joanne. Any last minute tips, tricks, ideas, and one more shout out for your website for our listeners?
Yes, well, for sure. So I'll talk about the website real quick. So I'll give the shout out. So that's joshnelliesbooks.com. So please visit me. You can chat with me there too. There's a live chat. I am the one who is chatting. It won't be AI, so no worries. And any last tips that I have, again, as an educator, I want to stress the importance of reading with our young learners, and to stress the importance of just not reading words, but being able to hear feedback from your young learner and how they are interpreting the information that they are learning, and making reading fun, also a lifelong lesson. And that is my purpose in my books and my stories, that they are learning lifelong lessons as well.
Thank you again, Joanne, for being on the show today. And I want to thank you all for tuning in to Get Rooted Radio. If you missed any part of today's episode, or you want to listen again, go to getrootedradio.com for the podcast. And don't forget to tune in the first and third Monday of each month at 5 p.m. in Eastern, 4 p.m. Central, and 2 p.m. Pacific, right here on Transformation Talk Radio. And speaking of books, I also want to encourage you to check out getrootedradio.com for the release of my new book and companion workbook. I believe no one is ever too old for personal and professional development, or to make new goals and chase their dreams. This is why I wrote this book. And if you are ready to branch out, to take a leap of faith, to love yourself and others fully, and to truly let go of what no longer serves you, then my book, together with the companion workbook, The Rooted Life, Live, Love, Let Go, is for you. My goal is to help readers grow into a new season of their life, to stop assuming that the grass is greener on the other side, and to energize and excite readers to power up their passionate dreams that set their soul on fire. Readers will learn about how their values affect every aspect of their lives, why self-care and self-love is critical first step, and how to stop and replace those limiting beliefs and negative self-talk, to truly set, communicate, and keep boundaries, and to live with passion on purpose, and set goals and put them into action. This book, together with a companion workbook, will guide readers to put skills into action and equip, empower, and enlighten them so they can be themselves for themselves. It will help readers build that powerful and intentional roots to live it up, love it up, and let it go. So message me for more details on purchasing your signed copy. Thank you again for tuning in. Have an amazing day, and I look forward to the next time on Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills, living it up, loving it up, and letting it go. Visit getrootedradio.com if you've missed any part of this hit show, and tune in on transformationtalkradio.com to live fearlessly in your more and powerfully rooted in your unlimited yes. For more information and to work with Erica directly, visit getrootedradio.com. That's getrootedradio.com, and get ready to live it up, love it up, and let it go.